What's up, beautiful people? Welcome back. We are at one of the saddest episodes of this series, in my opinion. We are on episode 8 of TheCHI. We are also at the mid-season finale. I didn't even know we were having one of these, but it feels like we haven't even had TheCHI that long before we're already taking a break from it. Y'all, this episode was just, it was heartbreaking. Kevin has left us in the best way possible compared to how most people exit this show. But this was just an episode that touched my heart this week. As we know, Kevin is leaving. As we know, most of the young people have graduated on the show, in real life, and also on TheCHI. Kevin is the character I remember we started out with. I feel like everybody was dedicated in some way or really connected to him. Like the 6 degrees of separation, everybody's connected to Kevin. So it's just crazy to see the arc of this young man's career. I'm happy that he's moving on to bigger and better things as an actor, but I'm really, really sad to see him go because he was such a light on the show. And TheCHI wanted to remember him like that. So we start off with Kevin riding the L through Chicago, and we're taken back down memory lane as he's just watching out of the window, and they're passing all these Chicago landmarks and monuments that he's seeing outside, and he's having these flashbacks to moments that we met him. We met this young man, I think, when he was like 10 or 11 years old on this show. When we first got introduced to Kevin, we know that he witnessed Coogie being killed by Ronnie. And we followed him up until this point, and with all his friends, like I said, all the connections. So it was just a beautiful scene that was shot with him sort of going back down memory lane, one of his last times on the train. It was so emotional. On the other side of town, as we sort of exit out this beautiful scene, Emmett and Kesha are fighting. They're actually in a silent fight. They're standing around the kitchen and they're going back and forth through it because last time we saw at Pastor Jackson's funeral, Emmett was pissed that Kesha talked to Nck about what was going on with the Douda situation and essentially asked Nck to do what she asked Emmett to do, which is to make sure that they take care of their family. And so he's still pissed at her about that, and they're in this fight. And they're going back and forth around the kitchen doing different things. Kesha's washing the dishes. Emmett keeps looking through the fridge frantically for something, and we realize he's looking for some type of Miracle Whip. He asked Kesha eventually, like, do you know where it is? Because she asked him, what are you looking for? Because you know how somebody annoy you and you like, So she basically says, what are you looking for? He says the Miracle Whip. She said it was on the grocery list, but you did not get it because this is another thing that you left off that you're not doing. And so, he's like, whatever. And she's like, and by the way, I have to take off tomorrow because I have to go look for a job. So you're going to have to watch the kids. And he said, I'm not watching the kids because I'm not off tomorrow. And, she's kind of looking pissed. And he says, but I will take off next week. And she's like, all of next week? He's like, yeah, so you can go look for a job. And all of a sudden, she kind of lights up in her face a little bit. She's a little less angry. She smiles and she says that she appreciates him doing that for her. It's a really big thing for her to do that. He says he doesn't mind doing that. He wants to show her that he supports her. And they're back to speaking and apparently back to fucking, because that's what happens next. They get it in. They're getting it in, and it's clear they haven't had, relations with each other in a while because, last episode, she said that she was kind of going into a separate room while they worked out their issues. They could stay in the same house, but until he fixes this issue with Douda, there was no more parts. But clearly they was having all parts after that. And so we kind of refocus back on them later on, but I'll bring it up right now. Essentially, Emmett thinks that they're out of their fight after they have sex. And Kesha says, no, this wasn't about us being out of the fight. It's just basically thank you, sex, for you agreeing to watch the kids for that week while I go look for a job. But we are still very much in this fight because you have to protect our household and you haven't been doing that. The reason that we're in this situation is because you hid this money for this man, and you also you don't know if you can protect us from this. And this is a really scary thing. We got kids here. So there's a lot still going on with the two of them, but they still making it happen. Meanwhile, Douda is giving the new dude that works with him and Nck props because he got them a connect that's going to help them to launder money. He says this as Nck is walking over at the garage, and he basically tells Nck that your reason that we're not even able to do what we need to do in the first place, you need to watch out because he's about to take your spot. Nck is not feeling that. He feels like he should have had his head more in the game, and Douda kind of walks off, and the new dude kind of gives Nck a nudge like, yeah, I got your spot, watch out. So around the other side of town, Tiff and Rob are arguing while they're in their grow house. Tiff is loving on the plants. She's doing her thing. She's spraying it down. Everything looks like it's coming together so that they can start to sell their own product and get away from Douda. That's been the whole reason why they've invested this money. They're even having a conversation about money and about paying her mom back and wondering if they can get an extension. Now, here's the deal. When Rob asked his mother for the money, Tiff knew that part. She even encouraged him to go to his mother, but he never told her what his mother wanted for repayment. Tiff still thinks that Rob's mom just wants her money back plus some interest. She doesn't know that Rob's mother has asked him to kill the person that killed Q, and specifically for him to do it. She never asked him to hire anybody or take care of it a different way. So Tiff finds out from Rob that there's no more money coming in. She talks about the fact that they need to figure out, some other plan. And she basically finds out that in fact, his mother asked him to take out the person that took out her uncle. Tiff is pissed. Of course, she wants nothing to happen to him, their family as well, too. All these families, anybody married, Kesha and Emmett ain't married, Rob and Tiff ain't married, but everybody family child. So either way, she's pissed off and she's like, you cannot get involved in this. He's like, it's nothing I could do. You don't know my mother. She worse than Douda. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, if your mama worse than Douda, how come she need her son to do this? I don't know about y'all, and y'all let me know down in the comments, but I really was pissed at the fact that this lady was willing to risk her son's life just to get Q back. If she's connected to the street so much and has been around so much, how come she don't know no other people that could take him out? Why was she looking for her son to be the person to take him out? It just felt real weird to me. So they continue to have that fight, and Rob says, look, it is what it is. This is the situation. Meanwhile, Kevin's at home packing and he's getting ready to leave for LA. And again, just another sad, somber moment. He's looking around. He's got things separated, the things that he wants to give away and the things he's taking with him. And he hears a knock on the door. And all of a sudden, he opens the door and there's a man standing there from a rent-to-own place or RTO. Now, if you know like I know and you loved the South Side, which used to be on Comedy Central, it's really a dope crossover because dude from the South Side is the one that's coming to repo his stuff. And if you don't know anything about the South Side, it was a really dope comedy show on Comedy Central. It's now on Max. And basically it was based around a rent-to-own store. And it was also based around a couple of cops that worked for the city and their interactions daily with each other. They would constantly deal with each other. But this guy, it was one of the brothers that worked at the store. So it was really, really funny to see that crossover because they were both shot in Chicago. And so he's there to repo the furniture, and Kevin lets him know that, hey, I'm supposed to have this furniture till Monday. And the guy's like, no, I'm supposed to be coming today. What you talking about? And he's like, yo, I got to come in and get this furniture. So I don't know what you're going to do. And Kevin's like, look, I got till Monday. He shows him his phone and it does in fact say Monday. The dude says, look, we about to go out of business. So I'm taking it today. And Kevin's like, what I'm supposed to do? He said, I don't know what to tell you. So eventually Kevin gets the, stuff repoed. I think he only has a mattress left by the end of everything. It was just crazy to see. I personally loved it because I loved TheCHI. I also thought it was really funny because Vic Mensa was on was on an episode of Southside, and for him now to be Jamal on TheCHI is also pretty cool too. Now, over at Smokey's, Papa comes to Smokey's in full uniform and he walks to the back to clock in. And everybody in Smokey's is kind of looking at him a little bit weird. It's like they've seen a ghost. And really, I think they're just shocked because we find out as Kenya walks following him behind to the back, she basically confirms that Papa was supposed to be out another week because his father was just killed and he took off time. And he tells her that he needs to work. It's one of those things where he has to take his mind off his dad. And I completely understand that. As somebody who's lost a parent, specifically my dad, I understand what it's like to have to just if you can work or do something to keep your mind busy, it just keeps you from thinking about the situation over and over again and sitting home sort of stewing in grievances and stewing in just sadness. And of course, with Papa, he's going to constantly replay the fight he's had with his dad before they left because they were on good terms in the sense that his father still loved him, and there was never a moment when he doubted that. But they had a bad argument right before Pastor Jackson was killed. And of course, we know that Papa stormed out. He told him not to come back. And part of that argument was around Kenya. So he tells Kenya he needs to work. He wants to keep his mind off of everything. She told him that she's been trying to give him his space, and she definitely understands that. He then goes on to apologize to her because he feels bad about the fact that he disrespected her when he was going through his grievance and told her, he didn't want anything to do with her because of the last fight that he had with his dad being somewhere around her. And she says that she understands, but she does forgive him. She understands that he was grieving. She asked him if he wants to go bowling later on just to keep his mind occupied and offer things. And Papa tells her that one of his father's last wishes was that he not take up with her essentially and not date her. And now he wants to honor his father's wishes because he can't do anything more than honor his dad since his dad is dead. And he lets her know that he doesn't think it's good that they see each other anymore in that way. Kenya is devastated by this news, and she says that she regrets giving Papa her heart and letting him in because, she feels played. Now, I have to say, I did feel really, really bad for Kenya in this moment. I understood some of the situation that Papa was explaining in the sense that he wants to live his life as this noble man he feels his father was. However, I just think he's selling himself short. He's super young. And, Jake kind of reiterates, what I felt a little bit about how Papa took on the onus of his father's situation. However, I also was a little bit thrown by how Kenya was so emotionally involved. Yes, her and Papa like each other. Yes, they got to know each other. But it's only been a couple of weeks, at least from our instance. They've only been around each other for a little bit. And she just introduced her kid to him, or rather, he found out she had a kid when he came by the house. So it just feels like they haven't done enough to get together yet to me for her to be saying she gave her heart to him. I don't know how quickly she felt like she might have been into him. I don't think they're in love. So I don't really know how that felt like that. But it is what it is. She walks off pissed, and it looks like they're not going to reconnect, or, maybe they will. On the other side of town, Maisha and Kevin are laying on the only the only piece of furniture he has left, which is a mattress, sitting on the ground. And he's the only thing he hasn't had repoed. They discuss LA and their feelings. And y'all, I'm just like overwhelmingly happy that they finally are getting this Maisha and Kevin storyline. I do hate that they gave it to us so late in the season and in the era where Kevin is leaving. So we don't really get to see this fully develop. Like, we've always seen them, back and forth with each other over the years, the looks, the crush, the back and forth with liking each other, but them always either having somebody else or having that misconnect. So it's been beautiful to see them come together, especially as young adults. I hate that they're taking it away from us so quickly, because these two have had something that's been going on since the day that they met. And I just kind of hate that we didn't get that. But they discussed their feelings about LA, and Maisha is worried that Kevin's going to go to LA and forget about them, or that he's going to have feelings that change and not be honest with her. And she asked him, like, hey, are you sure you want to do long distance? And he's like, yes, I want us to work. And she's like, hey, I understand that, but you're going to go, you're going to be busy, you're going to meet new people. If your feelings change, don't have me caught up in a situation. Don't have me feeling like you want to be together and then you're doing something opposite of that. Like, be honest with me, or just decide that if this gets too hard, let me know. And he's like, no, I don't want anything else but you. Like, we're gonna make this work. And she's just worried about him being that. He tells her that she's all he wants, he's all in, and that she's the one. And so, we leave it at that. So Emmett is discussing the repayment of the debt to Douda. Remember, y'all, last episode, Emmett basically said he wanted to be done with Douda, and he was wanting to get out of their situation, and Douda said he would have to pay him back. But we kind of know that Douda don't really give a damn about him getting no money. But either way, he tells him that he'll let him know what the figure is and that he has to pay him back. And then Emmett's like, cool, once I pay you back, we're done. Douda don't believe in being done. But Emmett truly believes that he can get out of this situation with the money situation. So he's talking to his parents because he talked to Darnell last time, and he talked to him about it. And Darnell said, we're going to have another discussion and we'll talk about the money. So Douda apparently gave him a number. he tells him that this is what he's going to need to do in order for him to be able to pay him back. Darnell is saying, cool, we will figure it out. Jada's there as well. And this is her first time really hearing some of these things, at least from Emmett with the sit down. And she says that they'll try to help him out in any way that they can, and they'll do as much as they can. And Emmett's saying thank you and he appreciates it. Darnell is, however, still a bit pissed. And we realize that Darnell said he is less concerned with the money situation and more concerned with the fact that Emmett even got himself in this situation to begin with. He's got a family to think about, and, he's got his own spot to think about, like, how could you get yourself into this situation? And Emmett is pissed because he feels like Darnell is a hypocrite. As we know, Darnell has always been like a semi-active father, but, he has other children, much like Emmett. And, him and Jada weren't married. He didn't make his mother a wife. And, he ran the streets. And so Emmett felt like, you a hypocrite. Like, we just now getting back into a really good relationship over these last couple of years. But granted, you can't tell me about the situation. You didn't actually always have us in the best situation. Darnell says, well, look, I did everything you did times 2, and I still never got myself into a situation that was this bad. They kind of go at it. Jada sort of breaks it up. And he just feels like Emmett should have handled it a different way dealing with Douda. Darnell basically says, look, I will handle the situation with Douda. I do not get involved. I'll do it my way. And it's left said right there. Meanwhile, Shad is over at The Rock helping out because, he's still looking for a job or some time of work. So I'm assuming Tracy gave him work. They never really indicated that to us, but that appears to be the case. And he's actually at a table setting some things up. I don't know if it was his own stuff, because y'all remember last time he was trying to sell jerseys in front of his house in the cold. And Tiara is also at Rock, and she is setting up a table as well. He's staring at her and looking at her, and I still can't believe he's like possibly into her over this one night. He has a whole other girlfriend, a whole woman who he claimed to love, he claimed to be in a relationship with and care about deeply. And it's just so weird that he's still caught up with this one night with Tiara, because she has clearly moved on and is dating Gemma's father and could care less. In that moment, Gemma's dad actually walks over and starts flirting with her because, of course, that's her man, and they're having a conversation. And Shad looks at her and then decides to send her a text message saying that he's not going to think about her anymore. I don't even know if she was thinking about him or even knew he was thinking about her, and that he's letting her go. They had one night. So, Shad, how you letting her go when she never came back? She was never yours to hold on to. And he sends her this message just saying he's not going to think about her anymore. He's letting her go, and he hopes she finds what she's looking for. And again, I don't even know how this happens with the text message, because they had one night together. It's just weird. Meanwhile, Tiffany meets up with Emmett to talk to him about asking Rob to stay away from Douda and stay out of this situation. And could he talk to Douda? I don't know where she was coming from with this, but her basic thing is she's trying to see if Emmett can talk to Rob about not killing Douda, because she doesn't want anything to happen to him. She lets Emmett know that he's her family, and Emmett says, well, I'm your family too, but on top of that, Douda not going to listen to me, and Rob probably not going to listen to me. So what do you expect me to do? And she's like, well, you got to do something, because I'm the mother of your kids, and this involves your son. Like, if something happens to Rob or to our home or anything, like, this could come back on everybody. Emmett says it's not his job to protect their home. That's really Rob's job. And, how this affects them is not, really on him. And she says that you need to do something. You need to help out in some way. He agrees to have a conversation with Rob, to try to see if he can convince him to maybe stay off of the path. But Emmett don't even know what he's going to do with Douda. So I don't know how he think he's going to convince anybody else to do anything different. Hey y'all, support this channel by smashing that like button. Your likes not only make my day, but they also tell YouTube that you also enjoy this content. Also, don't forget to hit the notification button. That way you can be alerted as soon as I drop a new episode. So we back into the for old time sakes moments. And one of them is Kevin is asking the guys they meet up to have one last chat, to chill, and to play some basketball. They're hanging out after the game. They sit down and just, talk as they always do. And it's just a reminder of the sadness of seeing Kevin leaving the show and missing these moments with them. We really did watch these young men grow up. And it's just so crazy to see them, sort of mature into who they are now and having these like deeper conversations about things that's going on and how their lives are transitioning now that they've graduated from high school. Kevin talks to Jake about taking over his apartment because his landlord needs to rent out the place. And he said, if you can find somebody that can sublet, that's even better. That's awesome for Kevin, because at least he'll trust the person that's living there. So as a sublet, it's him really renting to Jake on behalf like of the landlord. So Jake could just take over the place, pay the rent. And Kevin even tells Jake, hey, if you ever run into a situation where you're tight on rent one month, just give me a call and I'll help out. Kevin out here acting like a big baller, y'all. And Jake reminds him of that and says, okay, I see you out here lending money. So he's like, nah, I just want to make sure, like, I'd rather it be a place that I know who the person is that's staying here. And that, he could always come back and visit, outside of staying at his parents' house if he ever needs to come back. On the other side, Papa is discussing with them the fact that he has decided to let Kenya go. And Jake is wondering, like, why are you breaking up with her? I thought you really liked her. And he basically says that he wants to honor his father's death. And the last thing that his father and him discussed was Kenya. And again, he feels like he would be honoring his father by honoring his wish to not date her and get involved with her. And mostly, if y'all remember, Pastor Jackson had an issue with Kenya because he felt like her family was crooked. Like her father and her mother were like crooked people in the church, and specifically like, using the collection plate to live a certain lifestyle and not necessarily of God in that way. And he feels like their daughter could be the same way. He never really seriously met Kenya and had real dealings with her. So it was unfortunate that he was judging her in that way. But either way, he says that they're a done deal. Jake doesn't understand why and asks Papa, like, hey, you can't live your life for your father. You can live it in honor, but you cannot live his life. And if you really care about this girl, why would you not deal with her? Papa says he doesn't want to talk about it, that, it is what it is. He just wants to respect his dad. And they just have this really beautiful conversation around like the life choices that they're starting to make and the way that they're transitioning into what they want to do. They talk to Kevin about his move and how he feels about moving to LA and how he feels about leaving Maisha. Kevin states that he's not leaving Maisha. They're going to work it out. They're going to stick together. He really does want to be with this girl. And he asked the fellas for one last thing before they break out from this particular day, if they would do something for old time's sake. And y'all, we get this amazing scene with them rolling through Chicago on their bikes, in a lot of ways about how we met them. If y'all remember, and y'all are old school fans of TheCHI since season 1, we have always seen these young dudes ride their bike at least a couple of times in a season, especially when they were really, really young. They always have these beautiful moments, the three of them as friends. And when they're rolling through the city and we sort of getting these highlights of them sort of riding around the city, it's just a pure Black boy joy moment to see them, grown, but still hanging out together, still getting wisdom from each other, still just enjoying each other's company. And it's just a sad reminder that this is one of Kevin's last times doing this with his friends. As they transition on in their lives. We get a bunch of flashback scenes where they show us all types of stuff that they've been through and the mischief that they've gone through. We see where they were helping Jake through his moments, and when they were, at parties and too nervous to dance, and Papa set it off. When Papa was helping them try to figure out how to buy tampons because somebody sent Kevin to the store to go get pads. Like, it was an incredibly sweet and nostalgic moment, and it just reminds us how much we're really going to miss Kevin. Afterwards, we see Darnell enter a bar, and he's actually meeting up with Douda. He's there to drop off half of the money that Douda asked for from Emmett to get out of their business dealings. Darnell shows up with a bag. He throws it on the counter and he says, here is, what you asked for my son, at least half of it. And I'll be sure to get you the other half as soon as possible. Douda begins to laugh because, as y'all know, Douda could give a damn about that money. He really says, I really don't need this money. I really don't even want this money. He said, I prefer favors. And Darnell is like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I prefer favors. I prefer people owing me and a favor so that I'll call on you. And he said, one thing I really want you to do right now specifically is I want you to speak good things about me in these streets. Because I know you've been reckless when it comes to speaking about me, and I only want to hear highly favored things. Darnell said he's not with that shit. He's not one of these kids out here. And essentially, like, he'd rather just get Douda his money. He said, I'm giving you half. And I'll be sure to try to fight. I'll figure out a way to get you the other half, but I'm not finna owe you no favors. Douda says he doesn't think that that's something that he's interested in. He'd rather deal with Emmett on his own, and they didn't do the money. Darnell says, no, we will get you the dough because I'm not owing you no favors, and I'm certainly not talking positive about you in these streets. They part ways. Douda hands, Darnell is walking out as he leaves the bag on the table, and Douda lets him know to take his bag with him because he won't be keeping his money. Meanwhile, later on that night, we spot Nck sitting in his car chilling, and we see Kesha walking up to Nck's car. And she gets in, and we're like, what the hell is going on? At least I know I was thinking that, so I know y'all were thinking that. Kesha walks up and she gets in Nck's car, and we find out that Nck has called Kesha to talk. And he said that he's calling her to talk because he really just needs somebody to talk to. And it was always easy with Kesha. Again, I really do not remember that these two used to go together until a couple episodes ago. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I don't even remember them being a thing. But I think when we met Kesha on the show, she didn't have a boyfriend at all. So maybe it was something that they went together years later. I have no clue. I can't even remember. But he says he doesn't have anybody to talk to, and he really enjoys talking to her. He always is at peace when he talks to her. He enjoyed talking to her last time. And she's one of the few people he can talk to that doesn't want to actually kill him. So Kesha's alarmed by that. She feels empathetic and sympathy for him, you can tell, but she is concerned. She says that, what's going on? He tries to say some things to her. She, says that she kind of feels bad that she even came to him about the whole Douda situation because it really put her and Emmett on thin ice. And she knows that she really can't have a friendship with him. He said he knows her situation and he understands and respects that she got a man and all of that, but he just really wants her to talk to because they always had a great friendship. And she mentions that she really can't do that. She said that her and Emmett are too, fragile right now. And essentially she knows if she was to try to have some type of friendship with him, or even if it was just on a, you can talk to me type situation, it will put her situation at risk. And she's not willing to do that. She says that she regrets giving Nck the idea that she ever thought that they could possibly be friends while she's in her situation. And she gets out the car. Jake and Gemma are hanging out at Jake's house later on that evening as well. And Jake lets Gemma know that he is going to be moving into Kevin's old place. And Gemma gets excited saying, like, I can't believe you're about to get our own place. And Jake is like, it's not us, it's me. I plan on moving in Kevin's old place. In fact, I've always wanted to have a bachelor pad situation. She says, but you're not a bachelor. And he says, yeah, but just because I'm talking to Kevin about moving in there, it doesn't mean that we're moving in together. I don't think we're ready for that. And she's like, oh, but you ready for us to keep, getting it in. You don't have a problem with we doing it, but now all of a sudden we not too grown for that, but we too grown to move in together. And so he's like, I don't even know what that has to do with anything. She says, well, what if I stop sleeping with you? Then what if we not doing that no more? So he's like, well, you're going to punish me by taking away sex because I don't want to move in together prematurely. And she's like, well, if you think we too premature for that, shouldn't we to be too premature for the other thing? I mean, they did just almost have a baby. But I do understand Jake in this moment. I do feel like they are too young. They were too young for the kid situation, to be honest. They were not ready for that, but they were willing to take it on because it was happening. Neither one of them had a job or nothing. So Jake says he still doesn't think it's a good idea. He doesn't plan on doing the whole moving together situation. And Gemma is pissed. And she just kind of stays upset and she leaves. Later on, Emmett and Rob are talking to Victor across town in his office, and they're telling him about the Douda situation. Victor is trying to convince them, because Victor, of course, used to be Trig, that they don't know what they're doing. They cannot go kill Douda because it's ridiculous, and he's not joining them in that. He has too much to lose. He doesn't talk about the feds, but we know that the feds are watching him. And they're really watching Douda as well, because Rosalind came back and told Douda what was going on. He said he's not going to help them out in this situation. And they're not street dudes, so they don't even know what they're doing in this situation. He's like, y'all don't understand what could happen if y'all do not execute this well. And you won't, because you don't know what you're doing. You could really get yourself and your families hurt. You're going to put yourself in a lot of danger. And Douda really is a dangerous guy. Y'all don't know what y'all doing, and y'all are not street dudes. And he even makes a joke that when Rob says, like, we still going to do this, and he's like, yo, just you being tall doesn't make you tough. Like, it's a whole other life to live that. And the only person in that room who has lived that is Victor. And so he's trying to let them know y'all are not built for this. They don't want to hear him. They said, well, even if you don't want to help us out, we're going to do it anyway. And then they proceed to leave and walk out. Emmett has a discussion and says to Rob when they're walking out, like, hey, you know, Victor is right. Like, we, you know, he really lived, like, we can't do this. And Rob's like, hey, you could do whatever you want to do. Regardless, I'm taking care of Douda because he killed my family. So Gemma's still mad about the fight that she had with Jake. But she still feel like she, you know, she got to go do her work because, you know, Gemma's trying to do this whole music manager thing. And so she's meeting up with Brittney. We know it's Bakari's sister that just swooped into town out of nowhere, y'all. And now all of a sudden she's, you know, this rapper that Gemma really wants to work with, who she feels like is a little bit more fleshed out than Maisha. She seems to be a little bit further in her career in terms of the fact that she's almost got like an EP that's almost finished. And so Gemma is really excited to work with her. She rapped at the party that was the farewell party for Kevin. Well, I'm sorry, that's the with the graduation party, and people really loved it. So, you know, Gemma is really starstruck with the idea that this girl could really be the next big thing. And, you know, she's going full force into it. They're in the studio because Brittney has come into some money that we still don't know why. And, you know, I got my suspicions about a couple of things with this girl, but we're going to find out, I guess, when the season comes back. Brittney is playing her music, and Gemma is standing behind her at first, watching her, you know, on the boards while they're listening to her song. All of a sudden, Gemma walks from behind Brittney and goes in front of her into like a space between like the front of the boards and like view in like her view, and starts dancing really seductively, and, you know, trying to little, you know, dance all sexy. It was very birdish. It was very weird. And it just reminded you how Gemma just be jumping from place to place, child. But she's clearly trying to be very seductive with Brittney. Brittney walks over and comes behind her, and they start grinding. And, you know, Jake had his suspicions about Brittney after that first time and said, you know, she's trying to mess with you. If you get with her, she's going to try to do something. And, you know, Gemma float like the wind, honey. Technically, she with Jake because she cheated on Jake. She cheated with Jake. But I'm sorry, she cheated on Kevin with Jake. So it would not be shocking to me if she flew on over to Brittney. She starts grinding with Brittney. Then Brittney, she turns around. They look at each other, and then she kisses her, and then Brittney goes in for a full-fledged kiss, and then Gemma pushes back. Mind you, Gemma was inviting the kiss to begin with, and even dancing at her in front of her was to just try to get her to come on to her. It was ridiculous. Gemma pulls back and says, I don't want this kind of relationship. I want it to be professional. Then, girl, why was you dancing and grinding on her? Anyway, she says she wants to keep their relationship professional. She doesn't want it to cross any lines. And also, even though she's mad at Jake, she still has a boyfriend. Brittney says, cool, I was just going with the flow the way that you was going with the flow. Gemma says she's just really still mad that, you know, Jake has decided to get his own place and the place is not for them both. And that she also wanted her own place, but she doesn't have the money because she's trying to make a go at it with this whole manager thing. And it's really just been going slow. Next thing we know, Brittney pulls out her phone and cash apps Gemma $10,000. Gemma is like, yo, where did you get this money from? And she's like, I came into it as in, you know, I came into it on some luck coming up or whatever. She's like, well, what is this for? Because she's like, this is an advance for you as my manager. And so Gemma's like, this is a lot of money. Is this money because you believe in me and you believe in what we can build together as a team, or because you want to sleep with me? And she says, I don't need to give you money to sleep with you. I'm not hard up for it like that. I could get, you know, ass anyway, basically. And Gemma is like, well, technically, I only get 10% as a manager. So I would need to make you almost $100,000 for me to be able to pay you back adequately for this. And I don't know how I'm going to do that. And she's like, you'll figure it out. That's not really my job. It's going to be yours. But I trust that you can do it. So Gemma's got $10,000. Brittney says that this is an advance for her. I don't know. Tell me what y'all think. I definitely think there's something completely fishy about this girl ever since she moved into town. And where is she getting this money from? So next morning, we're on to nostalgic moment number 3. And this is one of the other sweetest moments of this episode. There's a few, y'all. So I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional just because, again, it's just a really sad moment that Kevin is leaving the show. But we get this moment where Kevin is talking with Kesha. And we have to remember, Kesha used to run track. So one of the things that her and Kevin used to do when they bonded as brother and sister is he would run with her sometimes. And they're talking just as, you know, she's giving him this last minute advice as a big sister as they're about to go on a run together. And she tells Kevin, you know, the same life advice stuff. You know, she tells him, don't buy any drugs from any strangers. always use protection, don't come back with no diseases. And he says, no, he said, that's crazy. I don't want to talk with you about that. Plus, me and Maisha are locked in. I'm not messing with nobody else. And she's like, I always love Maisha for you. And he's like, oh, shut up. But she also tells him, like, don't don't be starstruck. Hollywood people are just like us. Don't act like a groupie, and don't, keep pride about yourself. And she says, if you ever get into anything, call me before you call Ma. We could figure it out together. Because, as a big sister, you kind of want that moment where you feel like your sibling could call you first, and you probably be able to talk them through something more normal. Their mom can probably be like most mothers, get too nervous, too erratic, want to come get him or bring him home right away. And Keisha's saying, I could talk you through some things before something happens, because she'll probably overreact kind of right away. So she tells him that she loves him. He says, I love you more. And they go for one last run as Kevin's about to leave. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, we find out that Bakari has been in a state of depression. He is laying on the couch. He has a vodka bottle underneath his arms. There's all types of food trash around him, like empty soda cans and candy wrappers and everything. He's just been laying depressed, obviously because Pastor Jackson was killed and he feels like it was his fault. And he hasn't really been able to come out of that. Lo and behold, Papa walks in with Lene, and he's bringing Lene over because he's hoping that Lene can talk some sense into him. Bakari kind of, before they walk in, he wakes up into a different stupor, and he actually wakes up into a stupor of thinking he sees somebody, and it's he's just looking around to see. But then he talks with Lene, he talks with Papa, and Lene tells him he's got to work himself out of it, that it's not good that he's sitting there. Papa says he hasn't been able to get up, and that's why he bought Lene. Lene says he's got to get out and get fresh air. He can't go into a depression where he's doing things that are harmful, like drinking all day, or just going into this dark place. She lets him know that this is not how you can resolve and work through things. You need to work things out, getting fresh air, get something in your spirit, be around people that you care about. We don't want you falling into like a depression. He's not hearing it. He's still very much wrapped up in the sadness of everything that has happened and transpired. Of course, he blames himself for the passing of Pastor Jackson, and he just feels like, so much of this is his fault, and he doesn't really feel like he wants to go out and do too much of anything. So he stays on the couch. And over on the west side, Gemma is sitting with her father and Tiara, and they are talking about Gemma moving out on her own. So what she decided to do with the money that Brittney gave her is she wants to get her own place. And she says that she wants to live on her own. She started looking for places, and her father's like, well, I ain't giving you no money, so I don't know where you're going to get money from for rent, because I haven't agreed to pay anything. And she's like, well, I don't need the money. I got my own money. And he's like, well, where did you get that from? Are you doing anything illegal? And she's like, no, I'm not doing anything illegal. I am a manager. And he's like, well, you're not moving out. And so they're kind of going back and forth. Tiara jumps in and says, well, wait a minute. If she was doing anything illegal, I think we would know that. She says, did you get the money in a legal way? And Gemma says, yes, through my management. And she's like, you have to let her grow up. She's growing up. We could use the house to ourselves. And he's like, yeah, but still. And so Gemma's really happy that Tiara's on her side. And she said, you have to be open to her growing as a young lady. She's somebody who's made sound decisions. You've raised her well. And he's like, you don't whatever. So she gets back and forth into the situation with him. And Gemma says, well, you can't stop me. I can move out if I want to. And he's like, well, you can't talk to me like that in my house. And Tiara says, tries to cool down the situation from them. He's still upset. And she says, well, wait a minute. Don't you value my opinion? Don't I have a say? And he said, yes, you do. I was very shocked as to how much Gemma's father has given Tiara leeway. But I think it's really, really beautiful. She's the closest thing right now that we've ever seen to Gemma getting a mom. And I love how she's been in Gemma's corner for multiple things and really defended her on certain things, just because I think that imbalance has been there since her father's the only parent and been in charge. I didn't think that she was trying to be reckless or kick Gemma out early. I think I think she sees a lot of herself in Gemma and believes that Gemma will figure things out and survive. And they're right there in case anything happens, which is what she mentioned. But she said that if she has it together, then he should trust that he raised somebody who was smart and understanding. And if anything was to happen, they're right there. So it looks like Gemma's getting her own place in addition to Jake, and we're gonna see how it goes. So later on that night, we are at the throes of the beginning of Kevin's farewell party. Anybody that we know has at the house, all of Kevin's friends, family members, everybody that loves him, and they're having a good time. Everybody's sort of, eating refreshments, walking around, saying hey to each other, just having a good time. Music is flowing, people are dancing, and you could just see Kevin in a pure state of joy, surrounded by all the people that love him. Now, who is missing in tow is Emmett. All of a sudden, we are at Bianca and Alicia's lounge. We know Alicia is Rob's mom. And Alicia is sitting there sipping on some wine, and she turns around as a figure starts to walk behind her. When the figure comes up in front of her, we realize that it's the other guy that works for Douda. I keep forgetting his name, that's why I call him the other guy. But y'all know it ain't Nck. So I could just say not Nck. But the other guy, I think his name is like Dre or Andre, whatever, that's in competition with Nck for like Douda's number one spot guy. And he's well dressed actually at this meeting. He sits down with Alicia and he wants to know why Alicia has called him there. And she tells him that she's found out and heard on the streets that he's somebody who is a legitimate guy that could be a good asset to her. And she's interested in possibly offering him a job. Now he says, I already got a job. I work for Douda. And she says, well, as far as I know, when it comes to Douda, you may not have that employment anymore the way he's been moving. And she basically says that she would be able to offer him a more interesting and I guess lucrative position. And he decides to lean in to listen to what she has to say. Meanwhile, we float back over to the chop shop where Douda is waiting with Nck. Now, back when Victor was sitting down with Rob and Emmett trying to tell him that they wasn't no thugs to go try to kill Douda, when Rob said that he was still going to go through with killing Douda, he asked Emmett to make a phone call to have Douda meet up with Emmett. Emmett went ahead and made that phone call and told Douda to meet him and to meet him alone because he wanted to talk to him about something, and he wanted it to be private, and he didn't want to meet up with, Nck and not Nck. And so Douda, of course, is not dumb and shows up, with Nck in tow to meet at the chop shop. So he never even met in some other place. They end up meeting there. Rob and what we find out later on is Emmett roll up in this car because Douda and Nck are having a conversation. They straight up roll in there in these ski masks with all black on, and Emmett is driving. Rob is in the back. They roll the car straight forward like they're going to run into Nck and Douda head on. They almost crash the car, but don't. And then Emmett and Douda start shooting, and then Rob pulls out a shotgun out the back, drive-by style, and they start shooting all of a sudden. When I tell you Rob missed them multiple times, he almost hits Nck, he almost hits Douda, and then here's the kicker. And this is why you listen to street people about stuff like this. At one point, Douda falls back, drops his weapon, does not have it in his hand. Rob has the gun point blank, but he's been shooting. And he only has like a 9mm or something like that. He doesn't have like a shotgun or anything, any machine, nothing. He has Douda in point blank range to shoot him and be done. And he tries to shoot him and there's no more bullets in the gun. So now he's stuck because once he shoots, nothing comes out. Nck sees it. Douda sees it because Douda was done for. He didn't have a gun in his hand. Nck was messed up a little bit, so he couldn't. Why did he have no bullets? And then Emmett has a gun in the front, but he's too slow taking it out. And they realize that Douda is now reaching for his gun, shooting back. Douda shoots at the car. Emmett's able to turn the car around, but not before Douda shoots through the car and hits Rob. And Emmett and Rob come driving off. Douda also, in my opinion, I think I saw this. I feel like this is what happened, that Douda noticed that was Rob's face in the ski mask. So he now knows who also tried to shoot him, because we could see their eyes, we couldn't see their face. And I believe he saw his face. I don't know if he saw Emmett, but Emmett speeds off. They're able to escape in the car. Douda and Nck are both fine, just, messed up a bit. And Rob is shot, and we know that Emmett has to head him to the hospital. All right, y'all. So we back at the house, and everybody's still getting their party on. And Lene spies Kevin from across the room, having a good time, and she walks up to him, and they have this really sweet conversation. She says to Kevin she's gonna miss him, and they had a real connection with gaming. But Kevin essentially embraced her like another sister. She uh, pretty much got her life saved by being able to move in with his family, and him asking his parents if it was okay to let her stay when she was going through her family trauma. And he pretty much like probably saved her life in a lot of ways, and she does say that to him. She tells him she's gonna miss him, and he tells her, I'm always available when you need me, just pick up the phone or whatever. We're gonna always be good. And they have a really sweet moment, and they sort of have like a little, little dance off, little TikTok dance off kind of vibe going. And we head over to the food table, or at least to the where the liquor is. And Shad walks up because Tiara is standing here. And then again, I do not understand this connection this man is holding with her. But Shad walks up to Tiara and he says, "Oh, so you just gonna ignore my text?" And she's like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "I sent you a heartfelt message and you didn't even respond." And she's like, "I never got a message from you." And he says, "That's not true. I sent the message." He pulls out his phone and he goes, "Look, it says sent." And she says, "I didn't get anything." And he looks at the phone and he realized that he sent it to his girlfriend, Deja. And he's like, "Oh my God, I gotta go." Like, he can't believe he sent the wrong message. Well, he sent her message to Deja. So that part is just nuts in itself. Then we move on. Jake is up the stairs, walking up the stairs, because he sees Gemma sitting at the top of the stairs. And he talks to her, asks her if she's still mad, and she says no. She lets him know that she's getting her own place. And he's like, "Oh, where'd you get the money or whatever?" And she says that she got the money from Brittney. And he laughs because Jake has been trying to tell for the longest time, this girl is trying to mess with you. She is not giving you money for whatever. And she's like, "Are you jealous?" And he's like, "Nah." He said, "I'm trying to tell you she's trying to mess with you." And she's saying, like, "I'm not going to do anything with her. She gave me the money because I'm her manager and she believes in me." He says, "Yeah, okay. She gave you that money because she's trying to sleep with you." Gemma's pissed that he thinks that, it's more than what it is. But Jake is like, "Look, I ain't going to say nothing. Do your thing. But this girl is trying to sleep with you. She is not giving you that money for free. And she is not giving you that money based on no management." Then we have the moment that made me cry, or at least I said a tear, y'all. Kevin gives this really beautiful speech to everybody at the party about the fact that he wants to thank them all for believing in him, for loving him even when he was making mistakes, allowing him to grow. He thanks his family and his friends for having his back, for believing in him and what he's about to do, for encouraging him to chase his dreams. And it's just a really emotional moment. He even says dedication to those people that they lost along the way, because technically we lost Brandon, who was really close to him. We lost Coogie, we lost Ronnie. There's so many people that, passed away or were killed. He even brings up Pastor Jackson, saying that he knows he would have been there tonight had he not been killed. So you realize just how much loss we've had, but also how much love is felt in that room for him and for the other people in that room that care deeply for and are concerned for his safety. He thanks everybody for having his back, for loving him, and he promises to make them proud. And I forget who yells it out, but somebody says, "You already have made us proud." And Kevin is in tears, and I had a tear. It was a really beautiful, emotional scene. Now, the last few minutes of this show, y'all, was just a bunch of random scenes out of nowhere. It was a lot happening real, real, real fast. So at the end of Kevin's speech, Kesha is talking with somebody, I can't remember who, and she asked anybody had they seen Emmett, because Emmett was not there, neither was Tiff. So we are missing some people from the party, and Kesha is wondering where he is. And that's when we're fast forwarded to Rob at the hospital. And Rob is in ICU because, as you know, he got shot. And at his bedside is his mom. And on the other side of his bed is Tiff. And, they've never met each other. And Mama is already acting in a way that suggests that she is not interested in Tiff being in that room. When I tell y'all Lynn Whitfield was the perfect person to play this role, she always plays the perfect villain. And she is everything but the meanest bitch in this moment. I mean, she is asking Tiff what she's doing there, and this is her fault. And Tiff is saying, we were trying to get the money to pay, to get out of business with Douda. And she alludes to the fact that look what's happening to my son now, and I want him moved and all this different stuff. And Tiff is like, what is going on with this lady? And she's saying, like, this is really your fault, because she tries to blame Tiff. Tiff says, you can't blame me. This is your fault because he told me that you wanted him to do that. Who sends their son to go kill somebody and puts them in danger? And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And she says, we borrowed the money. She said he never even thought about doing something like this before. And Tiff said, we were trying to go into business for ourselves so we could get away from this type of mess. And she's like, well, my son has never wanted to try to go into business for himself. So I know that wasn't his idea. And Tiff said, he believed in me. He believed in what we could build together. And it's just a back and forth situation that gets real nasty. She's more nasty with Tiff than Tiff is, but Tiff is definitely hitting back with some good ones. And she basically decides to tell a nurse and call a nurse in to tell her that she wants Tiff escorted outside the room. And Tiff says, I'm not going anywhere. And the nurse says, are you his wife? And Tiff says, yes. And of course, we know that's not true. They're not married. And the mother says she is not his wife. And she says, man, well, if you're not his wife, you're going to have to leave. And, Tiff reluctantly walks out the door. His mother is left, and his mother pull a full-on Ike Turner with him. Ike was with Tina in the ambulance when she took all those pills because she's trying to commit suicide and she's supposed to perform on stage after she had the baby, and he tell her, if you don't perform, I'll kill you. Like, this woman is in the ambulance on the way to the hospital hoping she survives, and you telling her if she don't make it through this, he gonna kill her. It was crazy. And that's how Rob Mama is talking to him. And she basically tells him, like, how dare you tell about family business to somebody who's not family, basically saying that, we don't take information as far as hits are concerned on people outside of the family. And Tiff will be the first person to tell on them. Mind you, she's saying all of this while Rob is not even conscious. He's not awake to have a conversation with her. She's threatening her own son, saying how, you don't take that kind of information out the family. And she be the first person that be on a witness stand. And I see you have a lot to learn. And I'm like, this woman is evil. He was absolutely right about his mama. In strolls Victor and rolls up to Emmett, who's standing outside of ICU. And basically, he's like, yo, what happened? And of course, he finds out that Emmett and Rob went through with this Douda situation. And not only did they go through with it and Rob got harmed significantly, but they did not kill Douda. And he's like, this is why I told y'all not to do this. Not only have you now put him in harm's way, but y'all didn't even get what y'all wanted accomplished. And y'all essentially could have both gotten killed. And now there's going to be a hit out on you because Douda's going to want to find out who killed him. And he's coming back for revenge. And it's like, we had to do something. I don't know. What can you do? And he's just like pissed off because now he feels like he's pulled into this situation because of what happened. He's like, hey, if we don't do something, more bodies are just going to keep dropping. Douda is pissed back at the chop shop. He's mad about who tried to take him out. He's upset. He's telling Nck, yo, we want to find out who did this. And in walks other dude that's not Nck. Again, I think his name is Dre or not Nck. Not Nck walks in and he's completely shocked as to what's going on. Douda walks up to him like, where the hell you been? He's like, yo, my phone was off. And he's like, why was your phone off? He said, why were you? He said, well, I was off today. I wasn't supposed to be working. He said, you never off when you work for me kind of energy. And he's like, well, what happened? Douda doesn't explain what has occurred, but we know that he was talking to Alicia at the time. And that part I didn't connect until this end part, that essentially Alicia probably set them up. So even though he was off, it's interesting that he was talking to Alicia at the very time that Rob and Emmett rolled through to try to kill Douda. And that makes me realize that Rob and his mom must have set up that she would have him preoccupied. So that way, even though he was off, had he been off and just at home somewhere, he would have picked up the phone for Douda and probably got there as soon as he could. But when he was occupied with Alicia, he probably didn't have his phone off or any of that stuff. Wasn't paying attention to his phone at all. So he wouldn't have known that Douda was trying to call him. And that's when I realized, like, Alicia was really smart with the way that they set up the drama. essentially, he wasn't available and Douda was one man down when it came time. Had Rob known what he was doing, they really would have ran through with it. Shad gets back to the house and wants to try to talk to Deja. He's talking to Deja about, what's going on. He's really rehearsing what he's going to say to her when he walks in the doorway because he knows now that she's seen the text to Tara. He gets there and all his stuff is sitting on the couch. All the lights is off and Deja not home. He checks his phone and he sees that Deja liked the text message about that he sent to Tara about the fact that he was letting her go. And he realizes that Deja's not home and essentially she's kicking his ass out. He needs to go. She left his stuff there. He takes a suitcase and some other piece and he walks out the door. He no lived there no more. He wasn't paying rent no way. He ain't had no job. Fast forward, we're watching Bakari on the couch get up. He looks up. It's like midnight, I guess, around that time. But he's looking at like a vision across from him. And it's Coogie. At least the ghost of Coogie. And he's talking to Bakari about the fact that he cannot slip into the abyss. You have to get up and live life. You cannot sit here in this depression and lay here. He tells him that he never asked him to avenge his death. And again, I still don't understand that entire situation. As many of us know who watched the show, Bakari killed Ronnie back in, I think, season 5 or 6. I think it was season 5. And, he killed him, point blank behind Ronnie as a revenge for Coogie, but they never suggested that him and Coogie knew each other. So I never really understood why he rolled up on him, but he killed him because he felt like Coogie was a real one that he shouldn't have took out. It was so weird and random. And we know Ronnie had just repented and he had also saved Keisha's life from her kidnapper when he saw her and was able to rescue her and fight off the guy. And of course, Ronnie became like a local hero. And him and Tasha were just getting things reestablished when, Bakari killed him. So Coogie basically says, Bakari cannot stay on this couch. He has to go out and live. And the best way to live and to redeem yourself is to do right by people. And you have to do that with living a better life. And you can't live a better life and make good choices if you're sitting at home drinking yourself into a stupor. You have to get out and be amongst people, and you have to also just make better choices. We then head back to Victor and Fatima's. Victor is convicted at this point that he's got to do something. He walks in the house, he puts on a hoodie, he throws on some jeans. He's now looks like he's headed out. He pulls out his gun and puts it on, and Fatima goes to stop him. She says, "What are you doing? You cannot go out here." She already knows what he's up to, that he's going to try to go out there and get some type of revenge for Douda, rather against Douda because of all the things that's going on. But she's afraid to lose him. He already had the issues going on with the feds, and he just recently talked to her about starting a family, and now he's possibly putting all that at risk because he may be one of the only people that's not afraid to do that and could actually do what needs to be done, because before he was Victor city councilman, he was Trig street dude. So she asked him not to go out, to rethink the situation. Like, he has a family here, and she means her and Jake. He says, "Yeah, I understand. I completely understand." And we knew he was lying, y'all. She gives him a kiss and he goes up. She says, "I'm going upstairs. Like, I'm glad that you're listening to me. You're not whatever." He then proceeds to walk out the back door, take his gun, throw his hoodie over his head, and we don't know where that lands for Victor. We just know that he is going to take care of something, and we don't know what that means for, Douda. Last but not least, we see Kevin in his place. It's all cleaned out. He's standing around looking at it one last time and headed out the doorway. He gets emotional. I got emotional again because not only is Kevin, leaving the Chi, but he's also leaving the show. And that was the end of the Chi, y'all. So this is our mid-season, break. I don't know when it's set to come back on. I know that the writer's strike is going to be over or tentatively over by the time y'all see this video. So hopefully that means that I don't even think that's connected to this. I think they already shot the season of the Chi. I think this is just a break. So it may be back in October or November. And I look forward to seeing how it progress forward. I do hate that they're giving us such a short-lived moment with Maisha, but I'm excited for the remainder of the season. And I hope they kill Douda by the end of this. Y'all have a good one. Thank you for chilling with me. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye.